We've witnessed the rise of Uber, but are we now witnessing its fall? Our media partner, the San Francisco Standard, today takes a look at why Uber is launching a partnership with taxi companies in San Francisco. Joining us live now is SF Standard reporter Kevin Truong. Kevin, good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, interesting article. Isn't the taxi industry, though, the victim of Uber, the way many people think about it? The very industry that Uber wanted to disrupt or dispose of, and now they're partnering up?
That sort of central irony is what kind of got us to write the article in the first place. Uber was formed with the express mission of overtaking and eliminating the taxi industry. So we found it really interesting a decade plus after its foundation that they wanted to incorporate what was left of the taxi industry onto the platform.
Got to talk a little bit more about what that means for Uber. But first, real quickly, what does the deal entail with the taxis?
So basically, this is a pilot program that has been administered by the SFMTA to allow Uber users to call yellow cabs or Flywheel. These are some of the local taxi app companies through their Uber app. So, you could be calling in quote unquote Uber, but have a yellow cab show up at your door.
I see. Now, how many cabs are actually still out there that would be a part of this? Because I think their numbers have been declining, right?
Totally. There's only a couple of thousand taxi cabs and only 200 on Flywheel, which is the initial partner for the program. And the kind of interesting thing is if you talk to a lot of cab drivers, they're quite bitter about what Uber has done to their industry. And obviously, it's a completely voluntary program. So some of the folks who may be eligible in terms of the drivers may not actually want to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, for people who are newer to San Francisco, they may not remember that what happened was, there was a time in San Francisco when taxis were paying $250,000 for Medallion, the ability to operate a taxi, basically. And then Uber started as an industry, essentially making their $250,000 investment kind of worthless. So that's why that struggle has always been there between the two. But let me ask you, getting back to the why is Uber doing this now? Are they struggling?
Well, if you look at from the consumer perspective, prices have gone up, from pre-pandemic levels about 40%, and the amount of rides at least taken in San Francisco have gone down around 50%. And there's a host of reasons why this is, but it's because obviously due to the pandemic. But a lot of Uber's early rise was basically fueled by venture capital money and basically taking major losses in the pursuit of fast growth, of expansion, of taking over the world. And those chickens are coming home to roost a bit as the companies come on the public markets. And investors are asking basic questions like, how are you making money? Are you making money? Why aren't you making money? So that has led Uber to consider new ways, new partnerships to get drivers onto the platform. And that's where the taxi partnership comes in.
Uber has not ever made money, has it? I mean, in fact, it's lost a lot of money, right?
Yeah, so Uber, it's interesting. So over the first half of this year, they've lost $1.1 billion. Over the course of its history, they've lost something like $30+ billion. And some of the critics of the company that I've spoken to say Uber has played some sort of accounting game. So they have this financial metric they call adjusted profitability. And that adjustment is removing a lot of their costs and expenses. So if you can cut some of those off, it has a tendency to make your numbers look a little bit better.
Anytime you see the word adjusted, you got to get out the magnifier and take a closer look. But Kevin, I want to ask you, what does this say about the future of Uber? Where does it see its profitability, if you will, right? It can't just be based on this with taxis, because like we said, that's not even a big chunk of the market anymore. So where will they grow?
So Uber's strategy right now is actually trying to bring in people through their rideshare platform, through their food delivery services, Uber Eats, and get them to sign a membership, basically create some sort of brand loyalty. So they've started this Uber One membership that allows folks perks and discounts in some of those services. And this sort of central irony about that is the difficulty in sort of building brand loyalty when the last decade has been a lot of bad news about the company, including a recent show on TV. So that's kind of what the current hurdle that they're trying to overcome at this point.
And there's also a lawsuit by shareholders right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of lawsuits against Uber and Lyft, some around driver safety, some around rider safety. In this case, there are a host of shareholders who are basically challenging the company, saying that they were misled about their financial performance, about their business model, and have lost a lot of money in that respect. So Uber is basically, their share price since their May 2019 IPO is down 30% or so. If you compare that to the NASDAQ, which is just the general tech stock market, that's up 50% during that time. So you can kind of see the divergence there.
Yes. Okay. You also examined in your article rideshare going in the direction of self-driving vehicles. Is that something that's going to be commonplace for Uber soon? And is that going to save them?
It's interesting because that was part of Uber's long-term vision to their investors. They said, we're going to take over basically the market, the transportation market in a lot of these cities, a lot of these countries around the world. And then we're going to eventually cut our costs by replacing drivers with self-driving cars, which, obviously you don't need to feed or water. The interesting thing is they've sort of given up a little bit on that strategy. They've sold off their stake in exchange, or they sold off their self-driving development arm to a startup in Colorado. And now you have companies like General Motors, like Google, through their Waymo and Cruise subsidiaries that are basically leapfrogging them. And you can kind of see the results on the streets of San Francisco every day.